Welcome to Undiet Your Coaching Podcast. I'm Stephanie Dodier, clinical nutritionist and creator of the Going to Beyond the Food method, and I'm on a mission to help all coaches undiet their life and their coaching business. Ready? Let's do this. Hello, my dear colleagues. Welcome back to the podcast. This week we're going to talk about body fantasy, which is going to sit within the part of our coaching that has to do with body image. And I'm going to introduce you to this concept that I have created it's a kind of an observation that I have done with my years of working with women in the context of an on-diet approach, body image specifically, and my own journey through changing my relationship to my body image. And body fantasy is an observation that I first made in me. I was having a lot of fantasies that were grounded in the way that I related to my body. And then I kept seeing that same pattern in literally all of my clients. I don't remember working with one woman, now understanding that I work exclusively with people self-identified as women. I have not met a client woman that have experienced or had body fantasies prior to doing body image work. So we're going to talk about what is body fantasies, how are they created, what's the purpose of them, and then how to coach through them. So let's talk about what is body fantasies. So the best way I can describe that to you is the illusion that your life will be perfect when you get this other body. Body fantasies are imaginary, daydream stories that people create, scenarios that people play in their mind consciously and unconsciously. That's the kicker here. These scenarios, these dreams we're having, we sometimes can play in them consciously, like we lay in our bed and then we think about how life will be better for us when we finally change this aspect of ourselves. But here's the thing, when you know how the brain works, what you quickly realize is that the more people do conscious daydreaming, that becomes imprinted in their belief system. It starts over time and repetition of these daydream scenarios of how life will be better when this thing changed about my body. That becomes their belief system. And that's why I say sometimes it's conscious and unconscious. They've repeated this scenario so many times in their brain that is unconscious. And I'll use me as an example. By the age of 40, my early 40, when I started to do body image work, my body fantasies were unconscious because I had been fantasizing about my life being better when this and this changed about my body since the age of 14 years old. So for nearly 30 years, I had repeated the same scenario, the same movie in my head that it had became part of me. It had become imprinted in my unconscious mind or my belief system. And for me, it was about I'll be happier, I'll be lighter, I'll be more popular, I'll have more friends, I'll have quote unquote better partner. Later in my life, it was I'll be more successful, I'll have more money, I'll feel better about myself. And then insert whatever else your client think or what motivates them to want to change their body. Because here's the thing about body fantasies, they're the motivator. These dream scenario in their mind is what motivates them going through the suffering, the pain of shrinking, changing their body. Now I want to pause here to say this concept called body fantasy is not exclusive to our world of diet culture. Its fantasies are what holds people through any oppressive system. It's what keeps people in hoping that they will comply to whatever oppressive system they're in enough that they'll be able to thrive while still being in the oppressive system, right? So for most people, in our case of diet culture, as we know, there's a lot of deprivation, there's a lot of emotional suffering and mental suffering that people have, in a way, voluntarily have to put themselves through when they're dieting. And if you have been someone who has dieted and restricted, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you now, on the other hand, on the other side, you can look back and look at all the things you did and all the suffering you self-imposed while dieting. You're like, holy crap. Like, I survived a lot of suffering. And the motivation that we have to survive this suffering is the fantasies we create in our mind that will happen when we, quote unquote, get there, when we achieve what the system tells us is the perfect place to be. In the case of diet culture, the thin ideal, or in the case of wellness culture, the optimum health. When we finally get there, then we will be able to have all these things, right? It's the body fantasies is the reward. So it's safe to assume that when clients come to you to want to change their behavior around food, to want to change their relationship to their body, their mindset, they have fantasies that they have been living from when they were in the world of dieting and body hatred and wellness culture, right? Part of your role as a coach is to identify these fantasies and then to change your client's relationship to these fantasies. The other part about body fantasies is that they distract us. They serve as a mean of distracting from what is really a problem in our life, right? So I always say that dieting is a form of distraction from bigger problem that most women have in their life, right? So sitting in body fantasy, holding these fantasy creates good feelings. Like when you're laying on your bed fantasizing about how much your life will be better, or unconsciously when you engage in restricting behavior because you believe that heaven, paradise, will be at the end of this restriction process, there's so many things in your life that you're not seeing or dealing with because you're being distracted by this false fantasy that you think is going to happen at the end of your restriction or dieting period. So having and identifying these body fantasies as a coach, helping your client identify these fantasies is very important, because when these fantasies surface, right, like I've been holding myself from going for the next move in my career because I don't look the part. Let's imagine that that's the fantasies your client is operating from. Part of your job as a coach is to help your client go get that career, to act upon in the now moment, in their now body, in the fantasies that they've been holding back from. That's part of your coaching. Now, I believe, as someone who coach other coaches, I believe that the reason why so many non-diet coaches struggle with body image coaching is because they don't know how to coach clients beyond the scope of food and the self-reflection in the mirror. Anything that sits around, which I'll call here today life coaching, they feel that they don't know how to coach that. So when it comes to body fantasies and setting up goals and acting upon our goals and taking action on our goals and not stop waiting back, these are life coaching skills. And body image is a life coaching skill. So if you're struggling with, you're listening to this podcast because you wanted help with body image coaching, I want you to ask yourself this question. How do I feel about my life coaching skills? Because what sits really underneath body image is never about the body. Just like my previous podcast, 56, was about rebellious eating. It's not about the food, right? It's about the relationship we have to ourselves. And in the case of body image, it's the same thing. So is it why you're struggling with body image is because you're feeling ill-equipped with life coaching? And if that's you, I hear you, I see you, I want to give you a big hug because that's most of the people, the clients, the professional that I work with. That's why. That's why for myself, I struggle in my first few years in my business when I moved to exclusively doing non-diet coaching, when I closed my clinic in Toronto and I came to the world of online coaching. That's why I struggle. Because I only was applying the 10 principles of intuitive eating. That's all I had for reference on how to coach people. And I could only take people so far because I was ill-equipped to coach anything else, even body image. I'm going to share in the next few minutes here our process for coaching body image that I created because I have no framework of reference. But what I created for body image reside in what people most know as life coaching, because that's really what needs to happen for our client that are experiencing these body fantasies. And as I said, if your client struggle with body image, I can nearly guarantee you part of the reason why they struggle with body image is because of body fantasies. Body image coaching is not only about coaching our client through their reflection in the mirror. That's a part. But the biggest part is everything else that they've been holding themselves from living because of their body. And when you start digging with your client, there's a lot of stuff. Relationship, the choice of partner, sex life, relationship to their kids. I had a client, remember so well, she was a mother of 2 kids. She was a mom. And her kids, probably at the time, she coached with me for nearly 3 years, but I think at the beginning, both of her children were below the age of 10, and she wasn't allowing them to hug her because she was so ashamed of her midsection. She wasn't allowing her children to wrap their arms around her tummy, which was their height at the time, right? She wasn't allowing them. So her relationship to her body had a profound impact on her relationship to her children. And I'm not going to go today into the relationship to the partner, in her case, her husband, is like fundamentally transform from the work we did in body image, because if she wasn't allowing her children to have her hand around her tummy. Imagine her husband. She had never been naked in front of her husband since she had children. She always wore a baggy t-shirt. So I worked with her for 3 years, which is like complete life coaching we did. But I can just tell you without going into the details that her sex life profoundly changed because we did the work at the body image well beyond just her reflection in the mirror. That was the first few months. But then we went beyond that, and all the fantasies she was holding herself from living, she was daydreaming about because of the size of her body. So here's what I propose we do for the rest of the podcast here. I would like to walk you through the coaching framework I use and that I teach my professional student that will allow you to do the both part. Yes, work through the reflection in the mirror, right? That kind of work, but that goes beyond and address the body fantasy. So as I mentioned earlier, I had to create my own coaching framework when it came to body image because there's nothing out there. Like Evelyn and Elise created the 10 step of intuitive eating, and that is very popular. Most of us have training to some degree in that, but there's nothing like that when it comes to body image that's been popularized, right? So this is why I created that 5-step process for me first in my own coaching practice, and then now I'm teaching it to others. So it's 5 steps for us. And the first step is about, as always, examining, right? So our coaching framework stands alone outside of what we call the body neutrality 5 steps framework. But there's also the coaching framework, the life coaching framework that sits on its own. So the first step of any body image coaching for us is to first go into the coaching model and examine how our client is creating the current relationship they have to their body. What are their emotions, their feelings about their body? What are their thoughts? What is their belief system? And unraveling all that socialization, that indoctrination to diet culture, all their belief system that have been impacted in that creates their current relationship to their body. And examine that, show it to our client. This is how you have this is why you currently have the relationship to your body that you have. Show it to them and then engage them into the consent phase of coaching, which is for them to see it and agree that that's what they need to do. Then, once we've done that, that's steps 1. It sounds complex if you're listening to me and you don't have a coaching framework. On the side, this step here will sound overwhelming to you because you just don't know how to coach. So the solution for you is to learn how to coach. But let's imagine you do have that. So you examine and you show your client how they're currently creating their reality. And then we move into step 2, which is to disidentify, tear down the inner voice, their thoughts, their narrative, their story that creates their current reality to their body. So that's what we use as the self-coaching framework, our coaching methodology to tear down that inner voice, change the inner narrative, and change the thoughts and the belief system around body. That's only step 2. Step 3 is unique to body image, which is autonomy. We need to help our client reconnect to their inner power to create the life that they want. So all these fantasies that they have put on the back burner of their life until they get the body of their dream that they think they need to have in order to do these things, we bring that back front and we help them identify their ability, their power to act upon these things now to build safety around them chasing their fantasies, their dream right now. We help them bring it to life. That's part of body image work. Step 4, it's what we call the liberation, where we actively pursue. We usually recommend you start with one dream, one fantasies that they were holding back. Like, for an example, for my client who wasn't allowing her kids to hug her, we coach through her allowing a version of her kids hugging her. And for her, in her case, it started with when she was lying on the couch at night to watch TV, she allowed one kid to lay on top of her. It was a boy. He wasn't allowed to wrap his hand around her torso, but he was able to lay on her. We titrated. We took action, but we gradually, that's a trauma-informed process for those of you who are trained, we titrated the exposure to the threat, in her case, her kids wrapping her hand around her body. We gradually exposed her to what she believed was a danger to actively create that new relationship with her kids. And the same thing in her relationship to her husband. And then the last step is redefine. Many clients, or most clients that go through a body image coaching process, have to redefine their life goals. Because their fantasies, the things that they were putting on the back burner, actually is, well, some cases, that's what they want to pursue now. So this bringing all these fantasies forward and redefining what their new life, what their transformed life will look like. In some cases, they bring these fantasies forward and they're like, well, actually, I don't want this, right? So I call that writing a manifesto for your new life of a body neutral person. What is going to be that life? What goals are you going to pursue that have nothing to about your body? Which fantasies do you actually really want to have in your life? And how are we going to get you there? Right? We create a plan for them to bring these goals into reality. If you're using the self-coaching framework or coaching methodology, this is what we call intentional thinking. So we take a goal, right? We clean it up. We make sure that's not a dirty goal. We clean that up, and then we create an intentional way of believing and thinking in order to bring that goal into your life. Now, I know some of you are listening to me here, and they're like, I don't do any of that with my client, right? Especially if you are, just like I was, a trained health practitioner who has been trained to give out protocol to people. You're like, this goes well beyond what I do with my client. And that's totally okay. It doesn't mean that you have to do this. Maybe you hire coaches to do this work with your client. Or perhaps you train yourself, and this is where you move from the world of consulting, which is giving out protocol, to coaching client. This is why the consulting model, right, what most professionals have been trained, which is to literally write a protocol and give it to your client and see them a month later, does not work for the non-diet approach to health. Just telling people what to do doesn't work. We must coach people because it's a behavioral issue. So we need to coach at the thoughts and the feeling level in order to create the new behavior we and our client want to have. So I just want to drop that in. Like, if you are a doctor, a nurse practitioner listening to this, you're like, well, that's not really what I do. And I don't want you to become a coach. As I said before, if you've listened to the interview I did with a nurse practitioner I train, it's very clear we don't want her to become a coach. We want her to have her own practice and treat patient at the level she can do it medically and hire coaches to do this work I just talked to you about. If you're a coach, That's what you need to integrate if you want to coach people with body image. If you are in any way, shape, or form a coach and you want to work with body image with clients, this is the way. You got to deal with body fantasies and life goals and redefining how they want to live their life. It's part of the body image coaching. If you need to know about this and know how to do this kind of work, this is what we do in our non-diet mentorship. We teach you how to coach first, how to create new behavior. We use the cognitive behavior therapy model and a self-coaching framework to do this. And then we layer in the separate framework for body image coaching, what I call the body neutrality framework that I created. Or in the case of intuitive eating, we teach you how to coach within the 10 principles of intuitive eating. So if you need some help, I'll be very excited. You probably can feel my passion talking to you about this topic. I literally just off cuff, if you're watching this in the video, I don't have notes. I'm just talking because I'm so passionate about this work. And I would love to share this passion with you. So you can register for our wait list. We will be opening soon the next round of programs for the non-diet mentorship. I love you, and I'll see you on the next podcast. Ready to shed diet culture from your practice and help more clients do the same? Awesome. We've got 3 resources to get you started. Simply go to stephaniedodier.com/pro series, all in one word, and access our 3 free training classes that are currently available. We also have a free PDF guide to intuitive eating, an article about the non-diet approach. We also offer a variety of paid programs throughout the year to support you in your journey to undiet your coaching practice. Join us at stephaniedodier.com/pro series, and I'll see you on the other side.